Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here this morning. Welcome to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss everything regarding winning teams. I am your host today, CHRP Zipporah Kuria, and I'm glad you could join us. The Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a HR and risk advisory consultancy, and we partner with our clients to help build winning teams. With me today are our guests, CHRP Mother Thuku, as usual. Mother, welcome.
Thank you, Zippy, and good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Martha. Martha is a seasoned and a renowned HR professional, and she's one of our consultants, and we are glad to have her this morning. And with us today is Mr. James Kinuthia, who is an OSH consultant, as well as the MD of Zipporah Limited. James, karibu sana, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Good morning, viewers. My name is James Kinuthia Widaka. I am an OSH consultant. That means that I help clients basically set up health and safety management systems with the approval of government as an OSH advisor and fire safety auditor. I run a company called Zipporah Limited, which is the umbrella at which we are able to deliver audits, trainings, setting up health and safety management systems. We also do the smaller bits, which is now supplying the PPE that we recommend. We service extinguishers, we sell them, we design, install, and commission what you call fire safety systems. That is alarms, detectors, hydrant systems, etc. And beyond that, we endeavor to just pass information, and which is why today we've decided to join Aurum Consultants in spreading the gospel of safety, because it is a compliance area that not only has to do with complying with the law, but also adding value to the and having healthy workers, a safe environment, and of course increases both efficiency and productivity. So yes, let's join the conversation. Ask as many questions as you can, even the most controversial in health and safety. We will try our level best to tackle them with the experts on board. Santeni sana.
Thank you so much, James, for that intro. And today we want to focus our attention to discussing workplace risks. And of course, basically, we are going to look at OSH, labor and statutory compliance. And of course, you will help us just understand this topic a little bit better. And I want to believe, just as you've mentioned, we want to do risk not because simply it's a compliance issue, but it's because it's the best thing to do, it's a best practice. And as a business executive, understanding the risks that are associated with your business and mitigating the same, I would say that is best practice, not just waiting to comply because the government has said so. Because if you do that, definitely you'll be ticking a box and it will not be out of a place where you're doing it because it's best practice. And this will not only help you run your business ethically, but it will help you in ensuring that any risks are dealt with before they even occur. And I'm sure James will agree with me. We can't be reactive. We have to be proactive where risks are concerned. And the law also requires us to comply in many aspects of health and safety. And of course, we will want to understand that today. So as we start, maybe we can start with you, Martha. And you can just help us understand, what it is about these risks at the workplace. And what would you say are the common workplace health and safety, that would occur at the workplace from your experience?
Okay, Zippy, let me just put a disclaimer here. Today, I'm very happy that we have the guru regarding OSHA in the house. So I don't want to say much because I also want to learn, because for HRs, we actually also need to kind of be sensitized well exactly on where what law this law is about. However, with my little knowledge and having worked for a long time in HR, I've come across quite a number of areas that I think are really a health risk that could fall into this category of OSHA. And some of the things that I have done or have been trained on and those ones we have practiced in the office. The one straight up the head is about fire. For as long as I was young, like in my first employment in the bank, one of the areas that they were insisting on is about fire and fire risks at workplace. And I remember we used to have these fire drills, very elaborate, and then and you know, it's a fire drill, and they would make sure we don't know that it's a fire drill. So they had trained us how to behave, and there were all these fire extinguishers, fire. There was a staircase even when should we have a fire that we would pass and go outside, and the fire brigade will come, and we would have a fire brigade person talk to us. So that organization was very good at sensitizing its staff on fire. On occupational health hazards. My experience has shown me that this is one area as HRs we don't concentrate so much, but it can be one of the areas that is very risky and can cost a lot in an organization. And while we are having this podcast, I'm sure in this forum there are various HR people, and we need to shout out there that it's an area that is very expensive for the organization. So as Zippy has said, the law requires that we do ABCD regarding health hazards at workplace, but it's so important that it is still in our system, in our minds, that our staff, even us, because we are also staff, we need to be very safe at the workplace. And there are many things that can make us not safe. It can be costly to the organization, and just you having a challenge, a bad challenge, can also be costly to your family. Like if something happens in a family, I give a case of my nephew. He used to work, he's an electrical engineering, and he used to work in these big farms, the ones that do these combust harvesters. He's the kind of a person who can dismantle that thing and put it back. And he's in this organization, and some of this, it's really work that needs some PPE. And because he decides he's a guru, he doesn't wear the PPE, especially in the hands. And he passed through his hand to a machine that was moving, and just as the machine shreds things, it almost shredded his hand. And God was faithful that he really did not umia a lot, but it costed the family a lot and also it costed the organization to have his hand even crafted and returned back. Right now the hand is performing, but I realized that even as we discuss this, people need to be sensitive about hazards and what can happen to you as a person should you not even obey the rules, even if the organization has put in place. So Zippy, some of the risks that come into my mind immediately. So I said fire, there could be electrical hazards, and when I say electrical, let me talk about the whole area of electrical, even machine connections and laptops and connections in the office, and the way people just leave wires hanging around. So I found that another area because I know a staff who just tripped on that wire and fell. If she fell on something bad, she could have really been injured. So for that tired, there are other things like objects just falling around. Chemical, for organizations that work with chemical, imagine that chemical that is supposed to be locked, if it just, you are exposed to it, or it just goes, a bit of it just goes to the air, like the way they told us coronavirus just left, a small left, and the whole world was infected. So those chemical objects, if you're exposed to them, they could be also hazardous. And slippery floors in the office as you are cleaning, those are very dangerous and hazardous. And as I said, I am not a guru in this. I have just put things for me I've come across. We have the guru who knows exactly what that is and what OSHA talks about. But Zippy, that's what I can say. And for this forum, I would say that we really need to be sensitized. A, HR team, and B, so HR team can run with the course, but ensure that all staff are sensitized. Because in Kenya, we are very resilient. We just enter into things, and let things pass, thinking that, nothing will happen. And so even if HR are sensitized, all the staff need to be sensitized so that they know what to do. So even like that time, we would have those fire drills in the bank. You just have some people say, they're just seated. Is it a drill or is it real fire? And someone is seated. And we have been told, when you hear this noise, leave everything. Don't even go for your bag. Just walk and go this way and walk slowly. We were taught how to walk in a straight line without running. So people are not sensitized, and that's why people suffer at workplace. So I'll leave it there and leave the guru to continue from there. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Martha, for highlighting that. And indeed, when we are looking at health and safety, I think it's a very wide topic. And there are many risks that, that would occur at the workplace. And you have rightfully put it, some of the risks that are really common risks. But unfortunately, a lot of times we don't even think about it. We don't even prepare for it. And we would want to hear from Mr. James, some of these risks and what can we do about this? James? James, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I was muted. So for me, when I hear the word risk, it sort of, first of all, tells me to define what risk is and where risk arises from. So if you allow me, that's where I want to start. There's a very thin line between two words we use interchangeably, and that is a hazard and a risk, right? So hazards are everything that's around us. Everything near us is a hazard. The electricity we are using even to have this podcast, the people we are interacting with in the workplace, they're also hazards, because if they were to lose their sanity, then they would of course cause harm. So a hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. So think about all the things that could cause harm around you. The building you're sheltered under could collapse and cause you harm. The equipment around you, the people around you, the machines around you, the vehicles we are using, everything around us is a hazard. But now, what makes these hazards, what allows us to live and interact and utilize these hazards? It is the measures that have been put in place. So for example, this laptop that I am using is using electricity, and electricity is a killer. It does not even have second chances most of the time. But the reason I'm able to use the electricity properly is because I'm using well-insulated cables. I'm tapping power from a socket that is properly rated, has probably a fuse, and the wiring of the building has also been done, the step down from the high voltage to low voltage, to that consumer unit, the mini circuit breakers, etc., just to make sure that the electricity that I am using on my laptop, first of all, I don't interact with it directly. It comes in point-to-point proper connections. All right? So what have we reduced by doing that? I have reduced the chance of this hazard we are calling electricity from harming me. So when you talk about risk is that chance, the probability, the likelihood that the hazards around you will actually cause harm. So risks are basically those outcomes that we will experience when we don't do anything about the hazards in our workplace. Mother just talked about slippery floors. Floors have to be cleaned, of course. But a slippery floor, of course, is a hazard. What will reduce the chances that people will slip and fall in the workplace? Of course, someone will need to do a proper warning that maybe cleaning is in progress. Do not use that route. Someone will probably have to change the floor tiles if they are too slippery based on the kind of work that is happening. Someone will probably have to change the kind of seats that we are using in the workplace, because sitting for long hours is a hazard. The risk that will arise from sitting for long hours is developing lower back pains, neck pains, all these musculoskeletal disorders. But of course, we must sit. So what can we do to reduce the risk of getting all these musculoskeletal disorders? It is, of course, procuring the right chairs. And even after you procure the right chairs, asking people to sit in the right posture. I've seen many offices where you have the most expensive chair, a chair even going for about 70,000. But everyone is either slouching inside, or when they are at their desk, they're actually leaning forward to their desk. So it doesn't matter, even if you had given them a stool that is wooden, the effect would have been the same, because the risk is still there. They are sitting in the wrong posture. Sitting is a hazard. But now the risk of them getting all these problems is going to still be high, because they are using the wrong posture. They are using the wrong height maybe of the desk. Some of them are short and the seats are too tall, so their feet are actually dangling instead of having maybe a footstool to be able to hang on and reduce the chance of musculoskeletal disorders to the lower limbs. So when you think about risks, think about every hazard you have in your workplace. Look at the electricity you're using, the water you're drinking, the people you're interacting with, the processes, the chemicals, the building. Does it have exits? Does it have extinguishers? What are the likely sources of ignition that you have? Most buildings, electricity will start fire. In some workplaces, you have hot works like welding. Some are cooking, they have a kitchen in the office. So the risk of fire, of course, increases if you do not mitigate on these extra hazards that you have introduced in the workplace, which is cooking. So anytime you want to ask yourself, what risks are in my workplace? Start by identifying all the hazards that you have. The stairs that you have, does it have proper railing? Are the steps even, or do you have a step that is bigger than the other, where you're likely to lose your step and lose balance, right? And if that is a building you occupied, of course, you don't have control over it because you don't own it, then put up a signage. Tell people to walk by holding the handrail, to ensure they don't use their phones when they are going down or up the stairs, when they are not running. Things that will now mitigate on the chance of these people falling off the stairs. Talk about the shoes they wear. If it is a workplace where there is need to keep moving up and down, if you come in stilettos, it doesn't matter how careful you are. At some point, you slip because you've increased your chances of losing balance. And think working for human beings, like the cats. The cats will walk on fours. They are very stable. They'll even take a sharp corner and not fall. For us human beings, walk is a delicate act of balancing. You just lose your step, keep up, and you're down. So when you're looking at your flaws, are they one part that, okay? So when you think about risks, and there could be so many, I can't even list all the safety risks that are in your workplace without having to first of all look at all the hazards that you have. So that by identifying the hazards, including the people that you have, are they well cultured? Is there a policy in the workplace about harassment, insults, etc.? Talk about issue of the level of education, the discipline levels. Have you had even look at their criminal records from DCI? Because that could also be a risk factor. If they have a criminal history, chances are their prohibition to commit crime is lower than someone else who's never been through the criminal justice system. So I think I'd leave it at that point, so that now you assess by yourselves what are the hazards in your workplace, and you said hazard is anything that has potential, and what could they do? If they can do something, what have you done about it? And therefore that tells you whether your risk is high or your risk is low, because risk is probability, chance, or likelihood. Back to you.
Wow. Thank you, James. Martha, I don't know whether you're learning like I am. Wow. Did you know that hazard is everything that surrounds, you? Sitting can be a hazard. Did you even think about that? Imagine just sitting can be a hazard that could result to serious challenges, health challenges. You've talked about musculoskeletal disorders, and I was there thinking and wondering, oh my goodness, what is that and how do we even mitigate such a challenge? As an employer, I can provide very good chairs that are very expensive. But if the sitting posture of the people are using those chairs is wrong, then we still end up with the same problem. You talked about, identifying the hazards as the first place to start. For you to understand what risks you have in your business, you must understand your hazards. And I think that is so critical. And for me, that is a big takeaway. We must understand the hazards that are surrounding us for us to know then how do we mitigate those challenges that would come with those hazards. People themselves are a risk, Martha. We are in HR, we are dealing with people every day. People is our business, but they can also be the biggest risk factor of any business. So again, what are we doing about it as HRs and as executives where people are concerned? So thank you so much, James, for bringing that light. Now, to just help us understand this a little bit better, and maybe James, you can pick this up. From a law perspective, what does the law say about the workplace safety?
Wow. Of course, we would need a whole day, but I'll try and summarize what the law says about our workplace. Yes, and maybe I can start with what the law says about risks, because the law requires that every employer must conduct a risk assessment in their workplace and submit that risk assessment to DOSH. DOSH is the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services, and I'll come to that. So, Section 6.3 of one of the best acts that ever happened to any employee in this country, which we call OSHA 2007. This is the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which was enacted in the year 2007 by our late great President Mwai Kibaki. That was the time he assented to it. I think he actually assented on it on the 22nd of October, and it became operational on the 27th of October 2007. So what does OSHA 2007 basically offer? To all employees in this country, OSHA 2007 guarantees three things. One is safety, the second one is health, and the third one is welfare, right? So when you're looking at workplace safety, the law says a lot. It allocates some of the responsibilities to the employer, and some of those responsibilities are also allocated to the employees. There are many other people in the Act that have specific duties, including ourselves as the approved persons, that is OSHA advisors, fire safety auditor, the plant examiners, all these other people that are approved by law to be actually able to guide and help employers comply. But let me focus on where the responsibility of the employer is, because he carries the heaviest burden. When you put together a business, you have decided I'm going to be producing chemicals. You've decided on which chemicals you want to deal with. I want to deal with glue. I want to deal with organophosphates. I want to deal, with the farm chemicals. The moment you have decided on that, you've decided whether to do manufacturing or to import. So there's going to either be a process where you manufacture, or there's going to be a process where you intake goods, you store them in a warehouse, and probably you dispatch them. All these processes, the materials that you're going to use, the facility that you're going to use, you as an employer must ask yourself, what are the hazards that I have put together? What can they do to the people that I bring along into the business to help me manipulate the resources to generate value? What could harm any of these people? And what must I do to prevent this harm from happening to them? So the law will define even a workplace as any space, whether it is over a tree, under a tree, next to something, inside a building, as long as someone is engaged in meaningful employment. That is a workplace, including a Juakali store. That is a workplace. Anywhere a Kenyan is actually there to gain meaningful income, right? That is their occupation. That is where they derive their daily bread. That is a workplace. Which also now brings me to challenge you also to know that your own house, your homes, are actually workplaces, because there are people who work there under your employment. And you must ask yourself, does this girl or this gentleman know how to use the pressure cooker? Because those are part of the processes that you have in your home or in their workplace. If they don't know how to, can you train them? Or can you ensure that this pressure cooker then is not in use if they do not have adequate training, and give them an alternative that is better than the pressure cooker to reduce the risk of them getting harmed? That is basically what the law is asking every employer. Look at your process, look at the steps that the employee has to go through, look at the physical facilities, the floors, the exits, the access and the egress, facilities to do with the sanitary conveniences, drinking water, if they require any barrier between them and the hazard. If it is dust, you're going to provide a dust mask. But before you even provide the dust mask, can you be able to have a better process that does not produce the dust where an employee have to use PPE? Because PPE is normally the very last consideration you need to do when you're thinking about controlling your workplace hazards. So what does the law say? The law says, first of all, do a risk assessment. Get to know what hazards you have and what harm they will cause. Come up with measures to reduce that. After that, be able to conduct an OSH audit every year. Report to the government on how you're still managing, how your system is guaranteeing that you keep your workers safe. Carry out a fire safety audit. Tell us about fire. Fire is the one among the most common risks. What are you doing about it? Do you have extinguishers? Have you trained your staff? Can they be able to get out safely? Can you be able to call an ambulance or a fire brigade? Do you have emergency contacts? That is a whole system that you have to set up. It goes ahead to even talk about training. Train them on first aid. Train them on fire. Train them on all the hazards that you have in your work. If you're working with chemicals, let them know that chemicals are here. This is what they can do to you. And in case anything happens, this is how you control it. This is a first aid for this chemical. This is how you handle this chemical if it spills. For someone else whose process is maybe a service and people are sitting for long hours in the office, let them know that the display screen equipment they are using, that is a laptop, could harm their eyes, right? The sitting posture could harm their back, and they could end up using all their retirement money on physiotherapy. Let them know that if they close all the windows and all the doors because it is a cold day, the ambient air quality changes. The quality of air in the room changes, and that could cause harm in terms of the respiratory disorders they could get. They could share a disease right there, TB, talk about flus, talk about COVID. So it is about looking at what you do, what could happen, and what have you done about it. So simply summarized, that is what the law is asking. That let's make sure that our processes, our business, and everything that we do, when the worker comes to interact with that, they either go home a better person or the same way they came in, but not lesser than they came in. Not a finger less, not an aspect of their health less, nothing less. Basically, either the same or better than they came. That is OSHA 2007. It helps to mitigate on anything that can happen to an employee that will cause harm to them. So I want to stop there, Zipporah.
Wow. James, I'm listening to you and I'm wondering how many employers are really ready with all this. You've just talked about our home being, a workplace. And a lot of times we tend to think a workplace is a defined office where we have many people working in. We don't think a workplace is anywhere. Everyone is trying to work and, bring food to the table. We don't think about the Juakadi area. We don't think our home area. We have employees working from home. We don't think about it as a workplace and the risks that come with it, and that's a serious comment there that we need to put into consideration as employers, as employees. You've talked about the responsibilities of both the employer and the employee when it comes to, safety at the workplace. We need to understand what are my responsibilities as an employer. What are my responsibilities as an employee? The other day, and maybe James, you can talk about this as mother input into this. I had an experience where we had visited a premises, and actually a child got hurt by glass. What is the responsibility of the employer of this organization to a third party even? Does the responsibility just lie with employees, or it extends to people who would come to the organization?
Martha, are you want me to go next?
Okay, so are we answering Zippy's question? Okay,
Yes.
For me, I'm not sure about that, and I will still rely on James to say that. But from my point of view, and on the issues we are discussing, I can just say that okay, we know that as organizations and as HR actually, we know that managing safety and health is an integral part of managing a business. You'll find in an organization, like I have been a member of the risk committee. And as I was sitting here and reflecting back on the risk committees and the issues we have been discussing in the risk committee meeting, I can tell you that I can't remember the issue of hazards and what can affect us in the organization comes in, we go to areas that affect the business financially, or things like fraud, things like he was talking about, HR systems that can put them at risk, financial systems. And I remember in some of those committees, HR would really be engaged. Until one day I asked, are we in a HR meeting? Are you in a risk committee meeting? Because for me, it's an all round. It is those things that can bring financial loss, but also it is these other things that we are talking about today in this forum, which are even more expensive. And my experience, like I went to an organization, I was just at the reception, and I saw fire exit, and when I looked at the arrow, it was actually pointing to a wall. So this organization wants to show that it has OSHA. You just want to comply to the government. You are actually not thinking about the person. You're thinking about, oh, if the government came here, I'll show them I have a fire exit. I'll show them I have those red, fire extinguishers, the different ones. But the training is not there. People are not sensitized, and even the organization doesn't care, because I think at the back of our minds we don't think that it can never happen. And there are people also visiting us who can also be victims of things that we have just let run without being concerned in an organization. Like ZP said, that kid was injured in the workplace where he's not working. Who, under what law is that kid insured? For me, I would have looked at that issue from the what is it called, the workman compensation that takes care even of people who come from outside. But because James is here, he needs to let us know, because we have these things in our head, but practically we need to sensitize people that these are worse risks than even the HR manual that is not in place, or the disciplinary issue that went wrong. What we are discussing today is more detrimental to an organization than those things that the organization tend to focus on and forget that this is really bad. And James, you can bring in now the fact that other people visit our organizations who are not staff, and they can also be victims of things we have done and how we should handle that. I'll let you deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you. When you look at WIBA, I think it is the act you are trying to mention, the Workman Injury Benefits Act. WIBA only covers your employees, right? And let me maybe put it to perspective. If James comes to your workplace to do an audit, and part of the processes, or maybe something flies off from the machine and hits me, and I need medical care, that is not the responsibility of the company where I was doing an audit in terms of WIBA. James will be compensated and medical treatment will be taken care of by WIBA that SafePro Limited has insured James with. However, after I have done my treatment and my compensation by WIBA is out, I can go to a civil court and sue your company for negligence, a breach of duty to care. Because as an employer, every person who is legally present in your workplace, and I mean legally present, that they entered the gate, not through the fence, they were allowed in, they were accompanied by their host, and their host decided that it is safe for them to go through the production floor. Now, whether this person is a child or an adult, as long as they are legally present in that workplace, it is your responsibility as an employer to ensure their health, safety, and welfare. And this is why we talk about even restricting certain sections of the workplace from any unauthorized persons. Any unauthorized persons could be visitors, could be customers. Look at the Mabati companies, for example. You'll find that their production unit and their showroom are sort of next to each other. You must provide a clear demarcation between what they can see and where they are allowed to visit or where they are not allowed to visit. This therefore means if you allow them to go to production area, there must be a clearly designated path where you know that there will be no harm to this person, even as they go around to see your process. Because if that happens, then you are responsible for their safety, but not through WIBA, because WIBA is a Workman Injury Benefits Act by their employer. However, this is not to say that you're off the hook. You'll still end up probably paying more than you would have paid even for medical bills because there'll be damages. There'll be reputational damage. You know, the iceberg of accidents. There's what the cost you see in terms of accidents, you don't see. You know, wealth, goodwill in the market, the bad reputation that the company gets, the legal suits, because you have to hire lawyers and you have to pay them. That is money that would have stayed in the business. All right. Managers have to come and sit down and discuss the unfortunate incident. That is time of productive work. So these are costs you may not see directly, but they are very heavy and very huge costs. You may have even to have a hire HR company, a PR company to try and sort out the mess that has been created by the bad publicity. So yes, you are responsible for everyone who comes into your workplace as long as they are legally present. So you decide where do they go, where can they not go. Okay. Back to you, Zipporah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, James, for highlighting that and for helping us understand that better. Because a lot of times employers don't think that, third parties who are coming to the organization, they're responsible for their safety. And like you've put it, the law is very clear when it comes to OSH. You have a duty to care, and duty to care not just for your employees, but for everyone who comes to your organization. And when you put the measures in place, when you understand the hazards, when you understand how to mitigate these hazards, I think that becomes easier for you to be able to handle these challenges. Because like Martha has put it can be very expensive for your business. James has also told us you can end up having to hire lawyers, hire PR companies to come and mitigate the challenges that you're facing just because something went completely wrong, because risks were not mitigated. So this is a very critical subject we are having a conversation about. And as we bring this conversation to an end, I think it's important for us to consider, to look at what are the risks that are involved in our businesses. What are the hazards, that come with the business we do? I was having a conversation with one of our clients, and they said something that I found very good and very important as a best practice. When guests come to your business, what is the first thing you do? You do a simple induction. It could be a 5 minute, it could be 10 minutes before you let them, go past the reception and go to other areas. I've seen organizations where, if there's no clarity, even when you get to the gate, how do you get to the reception, or how do you get to the workshop? And sometimes you'll find guests, wandering and going to the wrong places simply because there's no clear process of how you administer guests to your organization. There's no markings of where every office is and where are the places where you should not go into. And I think these are serious hazards and serious risk areas that we need to consider and need to look at, so that again we mitigate those risks. As we bring this to a close, I don't know whether Martha, you have any final remarks.
Yes, thanks, Zippy. And my final remarks would be that it's very important that we be sensitive as employers. We be sensitive, and when I say employers, I'm putting even HR team here. We be sensitive on these workplace issues, because they can be expensive. We know how people who have even who have died, and it can be expensive to the organization. We need to be sensitive. It's paramount we lead by example, and mostly it's paramount that even as we set the health and safety policies and procedures, we make sure we engage the employees and encourage them to sensitive in this area. So it is not just a policy in the office that is filed somewhere, that when OSHA people come, we show them. It is something that it has to be a day-to-day life. This is how we do things here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. James, any final remarks?
Mine would be just to continue encouraging employers. As you do your budgets, as you do your projections, as you do your estimates, please cut something for safety because it's an investment, and nothing happens without effort. Things left to themselves do not flourish. If anything, they only deteriorate. So you must be very deliberate about assigning a senior member of management to get reports on health and safety, making sure that every head of department actually reports on health and safety within their sections. You can't just be giving bonuses and your appraisal is purely based on the units of production, the amount of money you raised, but then no one is looking at how many losses we incurred. What is the amount of business we lost from the bad PR about accidents? What is the amount of business we are losing because of the poor morale of our workers? Because in their mind, they don't believe or they don't think or they perceive management to be caring about their health and safety. So some of these things are very small. Be seen on the floor with the right PPE. Don't be the guy smoking on the floor and there are no smoking signs. Because culture is also built by what people see other people doing. This is what we do. This is how we do things here. And human beings have a very unique way of adapting to culture. They come from a very toxic workplace to a place that has a very strong culture. And within 6 weeks, all their bad habits are gone. And they conform. So build that culture, right? Build a culture where there is care, where there is a lot of procedures that are being followed. Again, not procedures to hinder work, but procedure to encourage work that is done in a safe manner. Because the moment people see that you're actually doing appraisals on the number of incidents someone had, or the number of trainings they have done from a proactive perspective, how many toolbox sessions have you had with your people about machinery safety? Have you trained your cleaners about the dangers of HAPIC and how corrosive it is when they are cleaning? That becomes the basis of appraisal. And everyone now is careful because they're like, well, have I done anything on safety? If I haven't, there are some 5 marks I'm losing on my appraisal. So it has to be seen as a commitment from them. This is not a bottom-up economy. It is a top-down thing. I mean, the commitment has to be seen because the law is also very clear. Whose responsibility is it? First and foremost, it is the employers. Then everyone else to themselves. But the employer is responsible for this space that we're calling the workplace. Remember, he's the one who's put these hazards together. So it is his responsibility or her responsibility. So as you think about it, doing good is good for business, is what I'll tell you. That you can do well as you do good. So, good and gold are going together. So don't think that doing good is more expensive, is going to eat into my profits, is going to eat into my margins. You're wrong. It actually saves your margins, improves your morale, makes the organization look even more serious than it was, and is able to attract investment, attract serious clients, and even a growth that is unprecedented. So I think that is my parting shot. Doing good is good for business.
Thank you so much, James, for those insights. And, I'm just thinking this conversation, we need to continue with it, and we'll be reaching out to you. Hopefully, you'll be available to help us, continue with having this conversation. And, something came to my mind. How do we inculcate safety as part of our culture? And that's a conversation we are going to have as we continue. We are bringing this podcast to an end today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we will welcome your comments even online and your input so that we can continue learning together. Should you need trainings, we are happy to support you with that. At Aurum Consultants, we offer trainings. We'll be happy to support you with trainings for your team so that you can have winning teams. Should you want more support to do with OSH and more support to do with audits and risk audits, kindly reach out to James through their contact, and this can be provided also through our website and through contacting us. You can also check out their websites at SafePro. James, I'm not so sure whether it's SafePro.co.ke.
Yes. Yes, www.safepro.co.ke.
SafePro.co.ke. We work with SafePro as our partners when it comes to risks and health matters. So kindly reach out to us and we'll be happy to support you. We will have the same conversations again next time on Saturday, same time, same place. So thank you so much and God bless you.